There's a moment in everyone's life where you stop entertaining the chaos, not with a loud exit, not with a confrontation, but with a silent internal decision. That decision is the moment everything begins to shift. Toxic people aren't always loud or aggressive. Sometimes they come dressed as friends, family, even lovers. They drain you, manipulate you, guilt trip you, and distract you from your growth. But here's the truth. You don't even have to fight them. You don't have to argue, explain, or even warn them. All you have to do is set an energetic boundary, silently but powerfully. An energetic boundary is not something you post on Instagram. It's not a dramatic message or a final speech. It's a shift in your frequency, your internal thermostat for what you allow in your life. It's when you silently say to yourself, I don't care who you are. If your energy feels like chaos, I'm unavailable. And once you decide that, toxic people feel it. They might not consciously understand it, but they sense that your energy is no longer reacting to that their hooks no longer land, that their games no longer work. And that's when you start becoming untouchable. See, toxic people rely on emotional access. They need to know they can push your buttons, make you question yourself, pull you back into their mess. They feed on your confusion. But when you set an energetic boundary, you no longer give them that access. You don't play defense anymore. You don't flinch, you don't explain your piece, you own it. And the moment you do, something changes, not just in how they behave, but in how the world responds to you. The world mirrors your standards. If you tolerate disrespect, you'll keep getting it. If you entertain drama, it will multiply. But the second you make a non-negotiable rule with yourself that your peace is priority, you start to repel the very things that once clung to you. People start falling off. Some get offended, some get confused. But none of that is your concern. You're not in the business of explaining your boundaries. You're in the business of protecting your energy. This isn't about building walls. It's about choosing filters. A wall keeps everything out. A filter allows only what nourishes you to come through. When you raise your frequency, when you become intentional about what you allow, the filter gets stronger. Toxic people don't match that new level, so they naturally fade out. You don't even have to push them away. They push themselves out when they realize their tactics don't work anymore. What makes this so powerful is that it doesn't require external action. You don't have to wait for the right moment. You don't need closure. You don't need to be loud. All you need is clarity. That deep, unshakable clarity that says, I am no longer accessible to energy that drains me. The moment you believe that fully, toxic people become irrelevant. Not because they changed, but because you did. You begin to walk differently. You speak less, but your energy says more. You stop over-explaining, stop proving your worth, stop justifying your intuition. You don't argue anymore. You don't play therapist to people who have no intention of healing. You simply distance yourself, not out of fear or hate, but out of love for yourself. That's the energetic boundary. It's subtle, but it's unbreakable because it's not something they can talk you out of. It's not something they can manipulate. It's your truth. And once you're rooted in it, nothing shakes you. And this isn't just about pushing others away. It's about pulling yourself closer to your own peace, your clarity, your focus. Toxic energy thrives in noise and confusion, but once you step into stillness, real stillness, those distractions can't find you anymore. They look for the old version of you, the reactive you, the people-pleasing you, the unsure you. But that version no longer lives here. You've upgraded. You've become the version of yourself that doesn't chase validation or seek revenge. You've become the version that knows protecting your peace is the victory. Sometimes the biggest power move is no move at all, just a calm, unshakable refusal to engage, not because you're weak, but because you're wise. You've learned that your energy is your currency. You've learned that not everyone deserves access to you. And the ones who respect that boundary, they're the ones you build with. The rest, let them exit quietly. So, if you're tired of the same toxic cycles, the same emotional roller coasters, the same energy vampires showing up in different faces, do this once. Make the internal decision that your energy is sacred, that your peace is priceless, and that no matter who it is, family, friend, coworker, or partner, if they bring chaos, they don't get access. You don't owe anyone access to your nervous system. You don't owe anyone your mental peace. The moment you understand that, the moment you embody it, not just think it, but live it, those toxic people will stop bothering you. Not because you fought harder, but because your energy became unavailable. And once you do that once, you won't have to do it again. Toxic people don't thrive on logic. They don't thrive on truth. They thrive on reaction. That's their power source. The moment you respond, whether it's anger, frustration, tears, or even try to reason with them, you've given them energy. You've fed the very thing you're trying to get rid of. But when you kill the reaction, when you starve their power source, everything starts to shift. Suddenly they lose grip. Their words fall flat, their manipulations miss the mark because your silence, your indifference, your emotional discipline, it takes away their fuel. To understand, toxic people are not driven by resolution. They're driven by control. Every time you defend yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you, you're wasting your breath. Every time you try to get them to see your side, to feel your pain, to get it, you're stepping into their trap. They want your emotions. That's the real game. If they can get you to yell, cry, overthink, or apologize for setting a boundary, they win. Not because they're right, but because they got you to break your peace. The key is this: you don't win by out-talking them. You win by not reacting. Not because you're weak, not because you're passive, but because you're in control. You're disciplined enough to know that your energy is too valuable to be spilled in meaningless battles. You learn to stop flinching, stop defending, stop giving them the satisfaction of knowing they still have access to your emotional state. It doesn't mean you suppress your emotions. It means you stop leaking them where they won't be respected. It means you choose where and how you express them, privately, safely, and with people who can actually hold space for you. Toxic people don't care about your emotions. They care about your reaction to their chaos. So when you don't react, when you remain calm, when you go neutral, they're left with nothing to feed on. That's when the confusion kicks in for them. That's when they start scrambling, trying harder, pushing more buttons, escalating the drama. Why? Because their usual methods aren't working. They don't know how to operate in silence. They're used to chaos, and now you've gone quiet. That silence, that emotional neutrality, it becomes your loudest message. You're saying, without a single word, you no longer have power here. And that's the shift. When you stop reacting, you stop being a character in their game. You step out of the script. You're no longer the one they can count on to blow up, to chase, to explain, to beg. You become a mirror, instead reflecting their own behavior back to them, offering nothing they can use. And that kind of power, it's unshakable. But make no mistake, this takes strength, because everything in you will want to react. You want to defend yourself, to prove a point, to correct the lies. But you'll learn with time that doing so only drags you deeper into their world. Reaction keeps you tied to them. It's a cord that binds. And if you want to be free, you have to sever that cord, not by force, but by stillness, by indifference, by emotional self-struggle. It's not easy, especially if they're close to you, especially if they know how to hit the right wounds, but that's why the discipline matters. You're not just protecting yourself from them, you're retraining your nervous system. You're teaching yourself that not everything deserves a response, that not every battle needs a warrior, that sometimes the strongest move is no move at all. The first few times you don't react, you might feel guilty, you might feel like you're being cold or dismissive, but that's just the conditioning. That's just the old pattern trying to pull you back. Keep going, stay steady, remind yourself this isn't about punishing them. It's about freeing you, because your energy isn't infinite. And if you keep spending it on people who drain you, you won't have enough left for the things that actually matter. So let them throw their tantrums. Let them gossip. Let them twist the story. Let them misunderstand you. It doesn't matter. You've reclaimed your power. And once you stop reacting, you start responding to life on your terms, not theirs. You become calm, focused, unbothered. And that's not just a vibe, it's a strategy, a way of life. You walk through the world differently. You stop letting chaos into your sacred space. You stopped handing your emotions to people who weaponize them. You learned to observe without absorbing, to detach without being distant, to care without being consumed. And eventually, they stopped trying, because toxic people only return to places where they can still feed. But you're no longer a buffet, you're a locked vault, a calm, quiet fortress of peace they can't penetrate. And that's the moment everything changes. Not because you fought harder, but because you stopped fighting at all. At some point, you have to stop asking people to treat you differently and start becoming someone who simply isn't available for anything less than peace. You don't do this by fighting for respect. You do it by redefining who you are at your core, because when you truly upgrade your identity, the chaos that used to follow you around suddenly can't find you anymore. It's not that the world changes overnight, it's that you stop being a match for the drama, the disrespect, the dysfunction. It bounces off you because it no longer aligns with who you are becoming. This kind of transformation doesn't start with external action. It starts with a mindset shift, a deep internal decision that says, I'm no longer the person who tolerates this. You're not running from chaos, you're rising above it. That's the key. You stop identifying as someone who has to deal with it, manage it, fix it, or make excuses for it. You stop seeing yourself as a target for emotional vampires, for manipulators, for people who thrive in disorder. You create a new standard, a new self-concept, one that says, I only entertain clarity, consistency, and calm. And the thing about identity is, it runs the show. We all live according to who we believe we are. If you believe you're the fixer, you'll attract people who need fixing. If you believe you're the one who always gets taken for granted, that belief will shape your behavior, and your experiences will reflect it. But once you redefine your identity, everything downstream begins to change. Not because you're pretending to be someone else, but because you're finally stepping into the version of yourself that's been buried under years of tolerating things you never should have accepted. It's not easy to make this shift because chaos is familiar, drama is addictive. We often mistake intensity for connection, but peace, real peace, feels boring at first if you're used to dysfunction. That's why people stay stuck in toxic patterns. They haven't yet decided that they are no longer available for that kind of life. They haven't rewritten the script. They haven't fully embodied the version of themselves who chooses peace like it's the only option. Redefining your identity is about reclaiming your power. It's about choosing the highest version of yourself again and again, even when the old version wants to make a comeback. That old version, the one who over-explains, over-gives, over-tolerates, will try to sneak back in. But your job now is to remind yourself, that's not who I am anymore. You don't need to prove your worth to people who can't see it. You just need to embody the person who already knows they're worthy. And that kind of person simply has no room for chaos. You start dressing differently, walking differently, speaking differently, not because you're faking anything, but because when your internal world shifts, your external presence can't help but follow. You carry yourself like someone who values peace. You stop explaining your boundaries. You stop getting pulled into nonsense. People feel it. They sense the difference even if they can't name it. And here's the real magic. When you shift your identity, toxic people either fall off or rise up. The ones who were only connected to the version of you that tolerated dysfunction, they'll disappear. Not because you forced them out, but because your energy no longer feels familiar to them. And the ones who want to grow with you, who respect your new standard, they'll stay. You won't have to beg anyone to treat you right. Your energy will do the filtering for you. But this requires discipline. It requires consistency. You can't redefine your identity in the morning and then abandon it the moment someone disrespects you that afternoon. You have to anchor into it, live from it, breathe it. Over time, it becomes your new normal. It becomes effortless. You won't even have to think about what to tolerate. Your nervous system will naturally reject anything that doesn't align. And maybe the most beautiful part of this transformation is that you begin to trust yourself again. You stop doubting your instincts. You stop second-guessing your boundaries. You realize that self-respect isn't just a trait, it's a lifestyle. You begin to see chaos for what it is, a test, not a trap, a reminder of who you used to be, not who you are now. Oh yes, there's power in silence. Yes, there's strength in stillness. But none of that lasts unless it's rooted in identity. Until you say, this is who I am now. I do not explain myself to chaos. I do not water myself down for dysfunction. I do not shrink to fit environments that thrive on my silence. Once you say that and live it, you'll find yourself in a different world. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You're not trying to escape toxic people anymore. You've just become someone they can't reach. And that's what happens when you redefine your identity. You don't just set boundaries, you become the boundary. You don't just avoid the storm, you are the calm. You don't just walk away from chaos, you stop attracting it all together. And when that becomes your truth, your energy becomes a force field, not from fear, not from hate, but from deep, unshakable self-respect. You don't have to make a scene to protect your peace. You don't have to announce your departure, draft long messages, or explain your decision to people who never respected your boundaries in the first place. Sometimes the most powerful move is the quiet one, the subtle shift where you just stop responding, stop engaging, stop participating in anything that costs your mental clarity. That's what it means to remove access without announcement. No drama, no closure, no final words, just distance, just space, just peace. See, the need to explain yourself is a leftover habit from the version of you that needed to be understood. The version of you that was constantly overthinking, trying to justify your boundaries, trying to make sure no one felt offended when you finally said enough. But growth teaches you something important. You don't need to explain. Self-respect, it's not a conversation, it's a decision. In presence starts to feel like pressure. When their energy starts to drain you more than it inspires you, that's your signal not to fight, but to leave, mentally, emotionally, or physically. And to do it quietly. The people who genuinely care about you won't be confused by your boundaries. They won't be offended when you protect your peace. But the ones who relied on your lack of boundaries, the ones who manipulated, gaslit, or took advantage of your kindness, they'll notice the silence and they'll hate it because your silence is louder than any confrontation. It says, you no longer have access to me. And the truth is, most toxic people don't fear losing you. They fear losing control over you. So when you remove access without a word, you take back your power without a fight. It's not about being cold or heartless. It's about being intentional with your energy, about realizing that not everyone deserves front row seats to your life. Just because you once shared space, time, or memories with someone doesn't mean they're entitled to unlimited access. People evolve, seasons change, and you're allowed to outgrow connections that no longer align with your growth. And the beauty of not announcing your boundary is this. It gives you freedom. You don't have to wait for the right time to say something. You don't have to prepare for an argument, a guilt trip, or a manipulation tactic. You just move differently. You stop replying to the texts. You stop answering the calls. You stop showing up to the places where your spirit feels heavy. You don't explain, you adjust. That's maturity. That's power. We often stay connected to the wrong people out of habit, fear, or guilt. We tell ourselves we owe them one more chance, one more explanation, one more emotional labor session. But the truth is, the more you explain your boundaries to people who disrespect them, the more you teach them how to keep crossing them. Some people don't need more chances, they need distance. And you don't need to be mean to create that distance, you just need to be clearer with yourself. Removing access isn't just about cutting someone off. It's about reclaiming your time, your energy, your focus. It's about redirecting your attention to the things that build you instead of the things that break you. When you stop giving toxic people access, you create space for better connections to find you, healthier relationships, clearer energy, more peace. But none of that can come in if you're still emotionally tangled with people who drain you. And yes, they might notice the change. They might accuse you of being fake, distant, or selfish. Let them. You don't owe them clarity about your healing journey. Let your silence be your statement. Let your absence be the closure. Not for them, for you. Because closure doesn't come from a conversation. It comes from a decision that your peace matters more than being understood by someone committed to misunderstanding you. The old version of you might have written a paragraph, might have over-explained, might have sat in discomfort just to make sure no one else felt uncomfortable. But not anymore. Growth requires you to evolve past the need for emotional permission. You don't need anyone to approve your boundary for it to be valid. The moment you feel the shift, the moment you realize that someone's presence costs too much, you act. Not loudly, not dramatically, just decisively. You might feel strange at first, you might feel guilt, hesitation, even loneliness. That's normal. That's the detox. You're clearing out energy that no longer belongs in your life, and sometimes that means walking away from people you once loved. But peace always comes after the storm. And that silence you create by removing access, it opens the door to clarity, alignment, and genuine connection. So remove access without the speech, without the warning, without the guilt. Let people adjust to your absence the way you once struggled with their inconsistency. You're not being petty, you're being protective, not of your ego, but of your energy. And the more you honor that, the more your life begins to reflect your worth. Because the truth is, when you stop explaining your boundaries, the right people will respect them automatically. And the wrong ones, they'll remove themselves. No announcement needed. Toxic people thrive on reactions. They need chaos like fire needs oxygen. The more interesting you are, the more emotional, passionate, or animated you become, the more you feed their dysfunction. And once they realize they can provoke you, it becomes a game, a never-ending cycle where they poke and you react, they push and you flinch. That's why the gray rock technique is so powerful. It flips the script. Instead of playing their game, you become the most boring, unbothered, unshakable version of yourself. Not cold, not cruel, just emotionally unavailable for the nonsense. You become gray, dull, neutral, uninteresting, and they can't stand it. The goal of the gray rock method isn't to suppress who you are. It's to strategically protect your energy. You're not trying to be fake or robotic. You're choosing not to give certain people the emotional supply they're fishing for. Because when you're around someone who feeds off drama, attention, or manipulation, your best defense is indifferent, not fake smiles, not forced politeness, just neutral, brief, and bland. Let them throw their jabs. Let them bring up things to get under your skin. Don't bite, don't flinch. You respond with the emotional enthusiasm of a traffic cone. One-word answers, no eye contact if you can help it, no elaboration, no personal details. Keep your responses short, factual, and void of energy. Okay, sure, I don't know, that's it. It's not passive, it's intentional. You're not being rude, you're refusing to entertain the circus. Toxic people crave control. When you use the gray rock technique, you take that control away, not by confronting them, but by making yourself so unengaging that they can't get the reaction they want. You don't argue, you don't explain, you don't defend, you give them nothing, and it drives them wild, not because you're attacking, but because you've stopped playing the role they assigned you. You're no longer the one they can manipulate, frustrate, or drain. You've become unreadable. And that frustrates them more than any fight ever could. And here's the beauty of it. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment. You don't need to prepare a big speech. You can start gray rocking today in your tone, your posture, your energy. You stop feeding the fire, and eventually it dies. They'll either lose interest in trying to provoke you, or they'll escalate for a while, desperately trying to reclaim control. But if you stay calm, stay consistent, and stay boring, they will eventually run out of fuel. This technique is especially powerful in situations where you can't completely cut someone off. Maybe it's a coworker, a family member, or someone you see regularly. You don't always have the luxury of going no contact, but you can absolutely go no energy. You create an emotional firewall. They still see you, but they don't feel you, and that's what shifts the dynamic. You're present but unavailable, there, but distant, not hostile, just disinterested. Gray rocking doesn't mean you become a lifeless version of yourself in general. You don't gray rock everyone. You reserve it for those who've shown you that they misuse your emotional openness. With the right people, you can still be vibrant, warm, expressive, and fully yourself. But with the wrong people, you go gray, you go neutral, you become unremarkable in every way that matters to their agenda. And you'll notice something interesting. When you stop being a source of drama, some toxic people will simply fade away. They'll get bored. They'll find someone else to latch onto, someone who still reacts, who still gives them the highs and lows they crave. That's not a loss, that's a win. Your silence, your dullness, your lack of engagement, it becomes your exit strategy. This takes practice, especially if you're someone who naturally wants to respond, defend, or express yourself. But every time you resist the urge to react, you're building a new muscle: emotional discipline, boundaried energy, self-respect. You learn that you don't owe anyone your emotional availability just because they demand it. Your peace is not a public service. It's yours to protect. Eventually, you'll get to a place where you don't even have to think about gray rocking. It becomes your default with anyone who doesn't feel safe. You'll notice the red flags faster. You'll start showing less, revealing less, reacting less, and in doing so, you'll create space for peace, clarity, and people who actually deserve your full presence. The gray rock method isn't about hiding, it's about protecting. It's not about pretending to be someone else, it's about refusing to let someone else control who you are. You still get to be vibrant, just not around energy vampires. You still get to be expressive, just not with manipulators. You still get to be you, but only around those who treat you with respect. So be boring, be uninteresting, be a gray rock in the middle of their storm. Let them search for chaos somewhere else because they won't find it in you. Not anymore. You've mastered the art of not engaging, and that right there is how you win without ever lifting a finger. Think about it. People stay where they feel comfortable, where they feel familiar. And toxic people feel most comfortable in environments that reflect their dysfunction. They thrive in places where boundaries are blurred, standards are low, and energy is chaotic. But the second you start raising your standards and forcing your boundaries, speaking with clarity and living with intention, they begin to feel like outsiders. Not because you said anything, not because you attacked them, but because they don't recognize this version of you. They can't manipulate someone who doesn't play their game. This is why upgrading your environment is so powerful. When your space becomes peaceful, when your conversations become intentional, when your habits become aligned with growth, those who feed off negativity will find nothing to latch onto. It's like trying to bring mud into a spotless white room. It becomes obvious who doesn't belong, and they'll either adapt or exit. Start with your physical space. Clean out the clutter. Rearrange your room. Add beauty, light, music, inspiration. Whatever reflects the mindset you want to step into. You're not just decorating a room, you're designing your sanctuary. A place that reflects who you are becoming. When your physical space is clean, calm, and intentional, it sends a message. This is not a place for drama. This is a place for peace. Next, elevate your habits. Toxic people hate being around those who are disciplined, focused, and hard to distract. They thrive on emotional reactivity and impulsive behavior. But when you start showing up differently, waking up earlier, journaling, reading, moving your body, setting goals, they feel it. It's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional. When your lifestyle begins to reflect self-respect, you no longer feel familiar to those who expect you to entertain dysfunction. Now upgrade your conversations. What you allow to be said in your presence is a reflection of your standards. If the people around you only know how to gossip, complain, or criticize, raise the energy. Start talking about ideas, growth, purpose, dreams. If they roll their eyes or get uncomfortable, good. That's the point. Not everyone is meant to walk with you into the next level, and you don't have to push anyone out. Just raise the frequency. The wrong ones will fall off on their own. Your environment isn't just your home or your routine, it's the energy you carry, it's the tone in your voice, the way you speak about yourself, the way you protect your peace. When you begin to carry yourself like someone who honors their time, values their energy, and doesn't tolerate chaos, the people who used to pull you into drama won't even know how to approach you anymore. You've become a different vibration, one that doesn't feed the dysfunction. This isn't about isolation. It's about elevation. You're not cutting people off to be cruel. You're removing access to protect what you're building. And if someone truly values you, They'll rise with you, they'll adjust, they'll respect the new version of you. But if they start calling you different, distant, too good, or too busy, remember, that's not an insult. That's confirmation. You are different. You are distant from dysfunction. You are too busy building peace to entertain. When you upgrade your environment, you don't have to say, I'm done with toxic people. They feel it. It's in the way you move, the way you stop answering certain calls, the way you no longer explain your boundaries, the way you're focused on your goals, not the gossip. They can sense that they no longer hold a place in your world, and it is powerful. The truth is, some people are only connected to the version of you that didn't know your worth. That overextended, that people please, that played small. But once you begin living in alignment with who you really are, they lose their grip. You don't have to block them, you just become unreachable by the old patterns. So upgrade everything, your space, your habits, your standards, your circle, your energy. Let the old version of you be so far behind that anyone who tries to approach you with drama feels like they walked into the wrong room. Let your life speak for itself. No yelling, no announcements, just a steady, silent elevation that says, if you want to be in my life, this is the standard now. And if they can't meet it, let them go. You're not losing anything. You're just making space for what matches your growth. Because at the end of the day, when you become the kind of person who prioritizes peace, alignment, and purpose, those who come with storms will simply not survive in your sunshine.